Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Tableau, the next logical step for your Excel students. Before we get started, I'd like to go over some very quick housekeeping notes. First, I recommend that you turn off any programs that could potentially take bandwidth, such as Outlook or Instant Messenger. Second, we encourage and enjoy interaction, so please go ahead and submit any questions you might have in the chat box or Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll make sure to address any questions at the end of today's event. Lastly, today's webinar is being recorded, and we'll share a link to the recording to everyone who attended the event in the next few days. So with that being said, let's get started. I'm Vanessa Welly, Marketing Director here at Logical Operations, and I'll be your host today. I'm joined by John O'Keefe, Technology Education Jedi at Logical Operations, and he's got an exciting agenda planned for you. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to him to get us started.
Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are currently located. Thank you for joining us for our webinar on Tableau, the next logical step for your Excel student. My name is John O'Keefe, and I am the Technology Education Jedi here at Logical Operations. I bring balance to the force between technology and education with my goal of offering thought leadership to all of Logical Operations partners so that you can grow your business in today's competitive landscape. Today we're going to be talking about Tableau, and we have a great agenda for you. So the first thing we're going to cover is what is Tableau. You may have heard about Tableau or seen some articles sent out about data analytics and what that is. So we're going to kind of give you a brief overview of what Tableau is. Then we're going to talk a little bit about why you should offer Tableau as a training institution. To piggyback off of that, we'll cover what is required to run a Tableau class. So we'll demystify that a little bit. And then we will end with a brief kind of what you need to get started with Tableau should you want to offer the training. So I think that this quote really kind of will be the linchpin of this whole presentation, and that the world's most valuable resource is no longer oil, but data. And what does that exactly mean? Well, I'm going to offer up a few key statistics to kind of go along with this point so you can, hopefully it'll hit home for you. I think many of us feel that data has become a currency and is really important in today's society, and a lot of that is thanks to Facebook and social media and what it means when our data has been lost or our data privacy is violated. And so we kind of now understand how important all of this data that's out there is. And by 2020, organizations, so businesses that offer user access to a curated catalog of internal and external data will derive twice as much business value from investments in data analytics as those that do not. And by 2020, the number of citizen data scientists will grow 5 times faster than the number of expert data scientists. What do those two things mean? Well, pretty briefly, businesses that have access to data analytics and who are using data analytics are going to make twice as much money as businesses that don't. And by 2020, so in a year and a few months from now, there's going to be 5 times more people that are working with data who are using programs like Tableau that get training from organizations like yours than there will be people that study data science in an academic setting, and that's like what their PhD is in. So the number of people working with data is growing incredibly fast, and businesses are really kind of having to make a choice. Do they want to invest in data analytics like Tableau, or do they want to be left behind and risk not making very much money? So with that, let's get into what is Tableau. Almost every organization now has data. You don't need to be IBM or Google to be collecting data and information from your customers or your employees. There are all different types of data too, from sales records, shipping manifests, employee time cards, customer satisfaction surveys, marketing responses, open rates, and not to mention even more complicated data sets that go beyond all of those systems. Now, what most organizations have been doing, and what has probably made up a lot of your business as a training center owner or a trainer, is they've been using Excel. Excel is a great program. It can take all sorts of different data, usually manually, and it can be put in and it can be made to look like we're all fairly accustomed to. And this is likely the reason you're running tons of Excel classes, because people need to use Excel to do business. People are coming to you to learn how to take all this data that's out there and make it into something manageable, like we see here, a common spreadsheet. This then requires teams of people, typically inside large organizations, to go through the data. They make pivots. They try and use basic visualization tools inside of Excel. And then they pass that data typically along to another group to try and interpret the data. So you've got one team of people that are inputting data and kind of managing the data records, and then a whole other set of people that are trying to make it into something that's palatable for a third set of people, which are the people making the decisions, because they don't want to sift through spreadsheets in order to understand whether they should run a promotion in the month of November. They want to be brought something to them that makes sense so they can see and say, oh yes, from a business perspective, that makes sense. Let's do a promotion in November because it's typically a low sales month for us, and here's a bunch of reasons why that might be. For data-heavy businesses, this is not simple, as you can imagine. It's one thing when you're working on one spreadsheet. It's another when you have thousands and thousands of spreadsheets from hundreds and hundreds of data sources, and you're trying to figure out what exactly to do with that. That's a full-time division at some companies. But there are ways to do this and do it better. And this is where Tableau comes in. So here's what Tableau is. It's a program that takes data from almost any source, including Excel, SQL, Google Analytics, SAP, and even Salesforce, and it can load data from single sources or multiple sources, and it can maintain static updates, live updates, and basically anytime you put data in, you can either change everything about the data set, or you can have it live update as you're putting things in. So anytime you make a change on the back end, it changes what's output. Because as we load all this data in, we're able to basically go through and create some stunning visualizations. So Tableau takes all of this data and it can turn it into a variety of different presentations. And everything I'm about to show you was created using Tableau. It was created with data sets basically off of Excel documents or from SQL queries. And all of these will be, if they were live on a Tableau system, you would be able to manipulate the data by clicking on almost any point on this visualization to learn more about what you have in front of you. So to start with, let's take a look at how this visualization came about. This is a visualization that shows an election results based from 1988 to 2016. And it shows how people voted in each state and specifically how they voted in swing states. Now, if I'm working for a candidate or I'm working for an election company that's doing results that wants to sell their information to news outlets so they can use that, and I'm looking at spreadsheet after spreadsheet after spreadsheet of voting records and what people are doing, that can be really daunting. With this visualization, if I click on any state, it will show me how they voted left or right in each election from 1988 to 2016. So right now I have it selected on Ohio, and as you can see, Ohio typically leans more to the right, except in 2004 when they leaned a little bit more to the left. That's a really easy understanding of information that can be very complex and difficult to get through. So that's one type of thing that Tableau can do. It can take complex data sets and make it into a super easy visualization for someone like a pollster to understand. And again, if you click on any of these states, it'll provide you with that data. Now, as that data updates, so let's say you wanted to throw in 2020 results, as you throw in the 2020 information, it will automatically update and you won't have to do anything. Once it's built, it's there forever. Next up, we have a visualization built by a Harry Potter fan. Now, I understand this isn't necessarily business related, but with the title of Jedi, I had to throw a little nerd trivia in here for you guys. So one of the things that you can do is you can map out flowcharts like this inside of Tableau. Now, you may think to yourself, how could I ever use this as a business case? Well, let's take out the Harry Potter part and let's put in a project management workflow where you've got different people reporting to other people inside a large organization. Now, keep in mind, if I were to hover my mouse over any of these data points, I would be able to show you that it provides additional information such as the name, who they're related to, so who they're working for, what projects they're currently working on, their email, their instant messenger, their phone number. So you could have a project management workflow or an organizational flow chart that shows all who is related to who, who's working for who, what projects they're working on. And as you update that information on the back end, the flow chart will update to reflect that. Next, we have a fairly standard business case, but you can see this is all data that's curated and put into one simple story. And it's talking about how McDonald's won over customers in Japan. Now, if I were to hover my mouse over any of these data points, it would show me the back-end data. It would explain to me how the data is related. It would show me any tangential data. So if I'm kind of curious, if I'm a McDonald's executive and I want to know why we're doing so well in Japan, and my project team brings this simple data set to me, I can take a look and go, oh, okay, well, it appears as though we had a few years that weren't very good, but now we're going up. It appears that there's a lot of different zones that are doing well with McDonald's, but it looks like mostly it's tourism growth and increased spending on fast food, which probably comes along with tourism. The more tourists you have, the more people need to eat, and a lot of times people eat what's familiar to them. So you can tell a very simple story here. Now keep in mind, there's hundreds and hundreds of data sets behind this, but all loaded in with someone who has Tableau training, they can create this very easily. And this tells a very compelling story to an executive inside an organization. Lastly, something that's very important for us here in Western New York, this is a look at how snow plows are active and where they're active at certain times during a snow event. So this is one particular plow out of many plows, and as you can see, because Tableau allows you to map things, it creates a route that the truck took based on the data from the truck. I can see when the truck was the most active, how many miles did they drive per hour, and I can then understand what exactly is going on when I'm plowing, and are we plowing the most efficiently? Now, one of the things that you may not think of, but if you can plow more efficiently, that saves money in gas, it saves money in overtime labor, and it decreases the amount of money that you spend on road repairs. Because when vehicles are out on the road for twice as long as they need to be, that is increasing the amount of damage done to the road twofold. So from a city perspective, Tableau can help me save a ton of money in a variety of ways. I don't have to spend as much on gas, and I don't have to send out road crews as often to fix the roads. So these are a few of the things that Tableau can do, and it can do so much more. We even found one earlier that was a Thanksgiving one. I didn't have time to load it into this deck, but it shows what the most popular recipes are per state. for all the different food categories for Thanksgiving. That's topical. That's coming up. So if you click on New York, it'll show you the most popular turkey recipe in New York, the most popular stuffing recipe, and then embedded in that is a link to the actual recipe. Very cool. Now, all of these things are why Tableau is a leader and has been perfectly positioned in the Gartner Magic Quadrant space for the past 6 years in data analytics. Basically, this chart shows that there's only 2 organizations that are leaders and that are visionaries in this space, and it is Tableau and Microsoft. And Microsoft, of course, is there because they built the foundational program Excel that a lot of this kind of runs off of. This makes the perfect transition, though, between Microsoft Excel students and Tableau students, because if students have taken Excel Part 1 or Part 2, then they're trending already towards data analytics, and that's probably why they're learning to use it. And so Tableau is a natural step for those students. And because Tableau is doing so well and they do such a cool thing, they have really great customers. They have over 50,000 customers, and some of these organizations are very big, like Nike, SpaceX, Citigroup, Bank of America, Google, HP, Dow Chemical. The list goes on. This is just a hand-selected few that I think are interesting, but this really leads us into why you should teach Tableau. And the main reason is because there's really no need to reinvent the wheel with Tableau. One of the challenges that most of you out there are facing is the pivot away from your traditional bread and butter business. That's tough to say, bread and butter business, meaning apps training. We recognize that one of the best ways to grow your business is to tap into markets that you haven't previously worked with and to find new students in your area who are looking to take courses that you haven't previously offered. There's hot trends out there like cybersecurity, data privacy, digital marketing, and web development, and there's tons of opportunities out in the market for those types of courses. The challenge I'm sure that you've come across is that branching outside your comfort zone, while incredibly rewarding, isn't easy. It requires you to purchase extra and sometimes expensive software. You've got to hire new trainers. You've got to market to new students. If you have sales staff, you have to train them to offer new courses and talk to new departments. We've all been there, right? We know something has the potential to make more money, but the challenges can seem overwhelming. This is why I think Tableau can be amazing for you as an organization, because there's no need to reinvent the wheel. If you're already training in Excel, doing in a database training, Power BI, Salesforce, and marketing, Tableau is going to be an easy transition for you from those to offering a great new competitive class. Because let's take a look at what your average Tableau class and how your average Excel class work. So let's assume a $200 price point per student. I realize some of you may not be on an open enrollment schedule. Some of you may be doing private trainings. That this is just an estimate. We're going to say 200 per student. And so if you have an average class of 10 students, you're going to make $2,000 gross per Excel class. Now, Tableau generally runs between $1,000 and $1,200 per student for 2 days of training. So this means that your typical class is going to net you for about 10 people, we're going to say $10,000. So there's a big increase in gross profit there. Now, if Tableau were like some of the other high profile and high cost courses, the challenges and barrier of entry to running this class would be incredibly high, and we understand that. But like we've already discussed, you don't need to reinvent the wheel to offer Tableau, because Tableau offers exceptional value without forcing you to change how you operate. Because somewhere between 10 to 20% of your Excel students are absolutely looking to take Tableau training. So if you're already running Excel classes and you're being successful with them, then the next logical step is to offer Tableau. Because when you offer Tableau, you're already capturing a good 10 to 20% of people that are in your building already. Not to mention organizations that are out there that are looking for private style Tableau training events because they're getting into Tableau since they recognize data analytics is the way of the future. So you've already got a large pool of potential Tableau students just sitting there right at your fingertips. You don't need to reinvent the wheel to get them to bring in extra money. So if you run for every 4 to 5 Excel classes you run, you can run one Tableau class. You're bringing in an extra $10,000 on average just by making sure that you're talking to the students who are in your classroom who are already taking training for you. Now, you're saying to yourself, that sounds great, John. I'd love to make an extra $10,000, but I don't know if I have what it takes to run a Tableau class. And I'm telling you right now, you absolutely do. So, the first challenge is going to be the software. Why is it not? Oh, shoot. Sorry about that. A little technical difficulty. So the first challenge is going to be the software. The number one reason we hear from training providers as to the challenge of offering Tableau is the cost of the software. Tableau licenses are not cheap from a commercial perspective. Now, Tableau does provide a 14-day full version trial that any student can use in a classroom. It has all the functionality required to run Tableau training and can be installed from a single email address for each class prior to the classroom being set up. Tableau also does offer academic licensing pricing for training organizations, and that's handled directly through them, but that does exist. And we are offering a virtual lab environment where you don't even need to worry about Tableau. All you need to do is get the virtual lab from LO when you get your book, and your students will be set to go virtually. So it is really great in terms of an easy to set up class. You don't need to reinvent the whole classroom. You don't need to buy a ton of software. You can either set up the 14-day free trial if you're comfortable doing that, or you can use the Logical Operations virtual lab environment, which some of you may be familiar with. Now, from an instructor perspective, there's really no previous knowledge of Tableau required. So if you've got instructors that are teaching Excel 2 and 3, which I'm assuming you do, they're perfect candidates to run Excel class or to run Tableau classes for you. The reason being is that Tableau Level 1 specifically is really focused on the great features inside of Tableau, and with Logical Operations courseware, instructors who have passing experience with Excel and who have taught applications before are ready to go and could stand this class up after doing a quick pass through of the Logical Operations book. Combine that with the virtual labs, which makes setup a snap, and you've got a pre-package ready to go that you can offer to your Excel students, and like I showed before, to make an extra $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year just based on the current Excel students that you have walking through your door. Logical Operations will also be offering a Train the Trainer, and that is a great way for you to get any trainers that you have up to speed on teaching Tableau. Now, lastly, the students, because none of this happens unless they sign up for the course, right? Your Excel Part 2 and Part 3 students that you have coming through your doors, mainly Excel Part 2, are your perfect candidates. It's very easy for you to market to students while in class. Have an instructor just briefly mention that you're offering Tableau training. Tableau has a few marketing resources themselves, but Logical Operations is actually creating some additional resources that you can use as a training organization to pass out to your students, and we will have those completed relatively shortly, so we'll be able to share those out. But you'll be able to market to your students while in class. You can reach out to students who have taken trainings from you in previous years, students who have taken Excel training, and it's a great topic for your sales staff to talk about when they're talking to corporates. So they're out there talking and selling the Excel training that you guys offer. It's an easy question. Do you guys offer Tableau? Is that something that you guys are using internally? Because if the answer is yes, you have a great opportunity to go in and do a private training on Tableau. And lastly, Logical Operations will do webinars for your customers. So if you've got a large base of customers, you can get in touch with your sales rep, and we can set up a time to do a customer-facing Tableau webinar to see if there's interest out there in the marketplace for you. Now, to kind of bring it all home, let's talk about what you need to do to get started offering Tableau. Because it's not that hard, and it stands to net you a ton of money and retain a bunch of Excel students. So, first things first, Logical Operations has instructor guides for Tableau Desktop Part 1 and Part 2. The Part 1 would be my guess as to your bread and butter. I think that probably 80% of your classes will be a Part 1. But for those that are completionists and are looking to get their certification, we do offer Part 2. I think that, again, Part 1 is going to be where you're going to see a lot of traction with your Excel students. And then some of those who take Part 1 will go on and take Part 2. Part 2 is a little bit more down the road, but both are complete and ready to go and have been reviewed by several training institutions and received excellent scores for materials compared to what's currently out there. We also, of course, offer student guides. The student guides are your standard Logical Operations materials that you've grown to love and have used in many ways. So it comes with the same type of experience. We have a Train the Trainer for instructor prep if that's something you feel you need. I do believe that qualified Excel instructors should be able to key an instructor guide for Tableau Desktop Part 1, do some of the activities, and be ready to go. We want you to market to your current Excel students using a variety of methods. I would definitely have your Excel instructors bring up Tableau. If you have a public-facing schedule, putting Tableau classes on the schedule would be great. If you don't do public-facing and you're more corporate-driven, make sure that you're talking about Tableau to the corporates that you're speaking with. There's a lot of people out there looking for Tableau training, and they don't necessarily know where to go. And while Tableau offers themselves some training, it's more expensive, and it's typically done at their events. So you have a great chance to carve out a strong niche in the marketplace here and really position yourselves as a leader in Tableau. I would also definitely market to my former Excel students. Very rarely are you going to have such a perfect crop of candidates for a training as you will for all of the people who have come through your doors and taken Excel from you. And then we would love to provide you with Logical Operations webinar support. The webinar that we're doing right now can be adjusted and branded to your brand so we can do it for your students to try and capture and gain interest for them. And lastly, we can provide some support around search engine optimization, just some terms that work, some search terms that have been successful for Tableau in the past. We are not an organization that handles SEO, but we can give some advice based on what we've seen work that kind of out there in the field. And with that, I'd like to open the floor up to any questions that anyone might have. As you can see, my contact information is present there, both my email address and our sales email address. If you have questions on anything you've seen and would like to reach out, please don't hesitate to give me a call or email me. You can also contact your sales rep directly, and we will make sure that we get a plan together for you that gets Tableau up on your schedule so you can start making those Excel students into extra money for your business.
Great. Thank you so much, John. As John mentioned, we'll start taking questions now, so you can feel free to add those into the chat box or the question box on the right-hand side of your screen. Looks like we do have a question that just came in. In one of the past couple slides, you mentioned the Tableau licenses.
Yes.
Do you know about how much those typically cost?
Oh, they're not inexpensive. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of $70 to $100 per user per month. Now, again, that's a standard license and how they would license to a commercial business. So I'm sure they have tiered pricing and volume pricing. I don't work for Tableau. I just have a basic understanding of what they charge. the best thing to do is, if you're interested in procuring licenses for training, is to contact Tableau directly, explain the situation. I know they provide academic licensing. If you're a commercial for-profit training center, they may or may not work with you on that. And if they don't work with you on that, rest assured, because again, you have the Logical Operations Tableau Lab, which covers everything that's in the Tableau course. So you will not need to worry about getting software installed locally on any of your machines. All of your students will have access virtually to Tableau and to everything that they would need to do for the class.
Great. Thanks, John. Another question, how much SQL do you need to know before attempting Tableau?
To attempt Tableau Level 1, you need practically zero SQL knowledge. The reason we suggest Excel is because Excel is the logical business transgression. You don't necessarily need to know Excel to do Tableau. That being said, again, the reason we suggest having some Excel knowledge is because we believe those students are trending towards data analytics careers. Typically, if you're a student that has to go beyond Excel Level 1, you're going to be doing some advanced things in Excel. And doing those things will soon become very easy when your organization switches to a program like Tableau. So in theory, a student can walk into a Tableau Desktop Part 1 class with very little SQL or Excel knowledge and be successful. Obviously, if you have knowledge of how databases work and how data sets work, it's going to make it a little bit clearer when you're taking the Tableau class. But I would not hesitate to offer this Tableau class to students who just have a basic understanding of data and data sets. So again, your Excel Level 2 students, you're a perfect candidate for this. If you have SQL students, they're also a perfect candidate for this.
Very good. Thanks, John. Another question that just came in, what else would people be using if Tableau is too expensive?
Well, that's a great question. So Microsoft, of course, has Power BI. And if I go back, I'm going to skip all the way back. It's going to take me a sec to get back to show you in the Magic Quadrant here. There's other companies. The biggest one is probably SAP. IBM also has some data analytics stuff like Tableau. So Tableau's been around since the mid-2000s. They've been basically taking data sets and making them look pretty and telling stories with them for about 13 years. And the reason they're so well positioned is because they kind of handle the most data and make it the easiest. So SAS and SAP and IBM, Salesforce, can do some of this stuff, but it's not as easy and they're not as full featured. But there are tons of other programs out there like Power BI, SAS, IBM with their analytics platforms. So there are other things that people can be using for sure.
Great. Looks like we're up to date on the questions that have come in so far. So we might hang on for another minute or so, see if any last minute questions come in. And as John mentioned earlier, you can contact him directly. He's got his contact information here, and we'll make sure to share it as a follow-up to the webinar as well. So we'll hang on just for another minute before ending today's event. Okay, got another question that just came in. What kind of cost can we expect as trainers from LO for student guides, software, and train the trainer support?
Sure. So we don't have a train the trainer on the schedule yet, but if we do get enough interest, we will definitely take a look at pricing that out. From an instructor perspective, the list cost of Tableau books are $120. That's, again, 2 days worth of training, and we tried to keep our cost of goods around 10% of what you should be retailing the course for. Now, that doesn't include any instructor discounts that you receive from your account rep. So that's just, again, the list price of the courseware. I believe the lab is $30 for 2 days. I have to verify that because we're in the final process of having the lab up and running. But so the lab would be $30 per student. So with no discounts, and keep in mind the no discounts applied, you'd be looking at $150 per student for the book and the lab. So that's everything they would need to take the course. And so if you're able to offer the class for $1,200 or so, you're a little over 10% for your cost of goods, but that still leaves you a good chunk of margin to work with. And again, from an instructor perspective, the cost is the same. However, your individual sales rep can provide you with discounted instructor guides.
Great. Another question. How does the Train the Trainer program work?
That's a great question. So at Logical Operations, what we do for Train the Trainers is we take one of our master trainers and you would attend a virtual training program with them. You would spend typically the amount of time that you would running the class. So if it's a 1-day class, you do a 1-day. If it's a 2-day class, it's a 2-day. So in Tableau's case, it'd probably be a 2-day training session where what the instructor would do is the instructor would basically go through the course with you and kind of highlight areas where they stress certain things or they bring in outside knowledge. They would make sure they key all the activities with you so that you see how the activities work and how they relate to the content that's inside the book. Now, from an educational design philosophy, Logical Operations, we write our books to teach to job roles. So inside of our books, you're going to find activities that you would need to accomplish should you be working in a job that requires you to teach Tableau. So they're not academic in nature. They're very much based on job role, job function. What are you doing when you're being asked to create a visualization? What are you doing when you're being asked to create a visualization that turns into a story? What do you do when you need to create a visualization from a PDF and you don't have a great data set on there? So it's things that you will encounter day in and day out when you're working in a role that requires you to teach Tableau. So you'll learn all of that. With the Train the Trainer.
Great. Thank you so much, John. Looking through, I think we are up to date on all of the questions that came in. So thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. And thank you to John for the excellent content.
Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. You can email either email address or give me a call. I'm happy to walk through any of this with anyone out there who would like to explore offering Tableau to your students.